Blog Talk Radio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Aha Moments radio show for the inspiration, education, and celebration of 5D living worldwide. I'm Mari, and we are back, and I am very happy to be here. So much is going on, and we are at the time of this recording, if you're listening to this podcast, as out in the ethers, a few, months, weeks, years down the road, we are in October, and this is a big month. There's a lot of mixing energies, and it's funny, I get various visions, especially when I'm channeling these shows, and the vision I'm getting is in California, where I live in La Jolla, there's a place called the Cove, and if you're ever in town, you should definitely get there. And when you look at the water patterns, today I actually went out to the cliffs and I just sat and did a lot of work, energetic work for myself and just filling up. Sometimes you just need to go and ground. I took my shoes off. It was about, I don't know how many degrees today, 75, 80, whatever it was. It was pretty hot for California. East Coast, they laugh at me. And I put my feet in the grass and I stood and looked out over the cliffs and got all kinds of advice and insight and stuff from my higher self. But one of the things that you see in California, because it's so rocky, the Pacific Ocean, the ocean floor is so rocky, that on the East Coast, you see the ocean kind of go out and in. It's kind of direct. It goes all the way out and comes all the way in. When I was living in Jersey, it was a very back and forth kind of motion. But what's interesting about the California ocean, about Pacific Ocean, especially in La Jolla where we have the cliffs and everything's so rocky, you see a lot of swirls in the water. So you see things converging from the left and from the right and from the top and from the bottom and spins and various things. So there's always a fair amount of lifeguard activity because there's a lot of tourists here and they kind of don't get that and they don't get what's going on, so they kind of get themselves into trouble a fair amount. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, and there's a lot of references I'll be making to being on the cliffs today, I was very inspired, and I had not been out there in months and months and months, so it was really good to get out, is that this month in particular, and usually in the fall, we have in the spring, there's certain times of the year where we have a lot of energies configuring and conspiring against each other, if you will. I could do whole shows on that. I don't get deep into all the astrology and all that stuff. I used to be more into it than I am now. But I think that there's certain times where things do get really heavy, and I like to bring it to your attention. And so right now we're going into an eclipse season. So we have a solar eclipse on October 14th. We have a lunar eclipse on October 28th. And we also have kind of really heavy planet retrograding, way heavier than Mercury in retrograde, which is Saturn. And that's been in retrograde for several months already. That will be going direct on November 4th. So we have kind of this little corridor where things might feel kind of tight, kind of heavy, kind of grippy, kind of like your flow is off, like things that kind of normally sort of trip easy for you are kind of not. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It's nothing to, feel like you can't get anything done. It's nothing like that. But what it is, and you can, Google these things and say, spiritual meaning of lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, all that. There's plenty of things out there making all kinds of speculations. But for our purposes, I just want you to know from a 5D Academy perspective, from your fifth dimensional frequency energy, 5D, your higher levels of frequency kind of trump what's going on the earth. So you have the power, the personal power to navigate. You know, it's like being in a storm, right? You kind of come out of the water and you wade it out. So you have this power to navigate. And if you are fluent in the language of your higher self, if you are able to communicate directly with your higher self in a two-way conversation and have that kind of what I call Batman and Robin relationship with your higher self, it will see you through all of these dips and trips and, highs and lows and the heaviness and the kind of feeling like you can't see around the next corner, like the blind spots, right? We have energetic blind spots in life. It's just part of being in this 3D existence. A lot of times it's, so that we'll ask better questions, so that we'll step up further, so that we'll clean up certain things. There are times when we are pulling back and we are cleaning out and clearing out, taking notice of things that have been on our way, letting go of the past, getting more present. That when we have a lot of conjuncting planets, a lot of things retrograding, eclipses and what have you, it's really a time to slow down, get present. And the best key, the best tool that you have is the navigation system of your higher self. So your higher self is sending you, and I'm going to get into what your higher self actually is because people get kind of confused, but it's sending you at least 100 messages a day. And if you don't know how to interpret those messages, it's kind of like going to, going to China and trying to eat in a restaurant and not being able to order because you don't have the language. And there's all kinds of amazing conversations going on in another country that's not of your own native tongue. But if you don't understand any of it, then you're missing the whole thing. It just sounds like gibberish, right? So energetic communications is its own language. Your higher self is the expanded part of you. So it's not an angel. It's not, a spirit guide. Your higher self is, before you take on a body on the 3D physical world, you're part of your whole totality of you, a big giant ball of energy. That's the totality of you. And then you take a little portion of yourself and you decide, okay, we're going to do a physical incarnation in the third dimension, which will be here on Earth. And you allow a thimble-sized portion of yourself to jump into a body car, get a name, a soul group, and all that, and then navigate the physical world. But it is still attached to the rest of you, the full you, the expanded you, the higher self of you, right? So the higher being, or in the 5D Academy, my students, we kind of interchange higher self, expanded self. Really depends on what your 3D mind is able to kind of get its head around. So whether if it feels better to say expanded self instead of higher self, where you feel that more hierarchy, higher, lower, good, bad kind of thing, then if you say expanded self, it just lets you know, hey, it's still me. It's still you. Your higher self is what's connected, though, to the infinite. So the portion of you that gets in the body car kind of gets the veil of some boundaries around it. You might call it the veil of forgetfulness, but I like to call it boundaries, so that you can sort of stay focused on living a physical, walkabout, right? And then your higher self, your expanded self, one and the same thing, is the navigation system. It has access to the infinite. It has access to all of the infinite possibilities, all of your solutions, all of the configurations that could potentially be, all of your parallel realities, all of your cosmic records, all of the things. Okay, so your higher self is 100% infinitely connected. And so it's always sending you inspiration. Okay, it's always sending you guidance, protection. It will send you warnings. It will send you, it's your periscope. How easy what do they do with a submarine? Sail it? Drive it? Whatever. How easy would it be to navigate a submarine under the ocean without the periscope, without the sonar, without the radar. Right? So this is so important, and I, periodically, in the academy, we get into so many things, parallel realities, and all kinds of different multidimensional manifesting and alchemy and all these big things. But at the end of the day, I do take people back to the basics and the most basic thing, because if you don't have this, then all of the alchemy and all the, the bigger, fancier things and manifesting and multidimensionality and all of that stuff really falls short. Because your higher self, in addition to being kind of the holder of the infinite for you, kind of your librarian, if you will, to all of you and all of the things that are available to you. It's like your reference librarian. It is also your narrator, your tour guide, and your best buddy along the way. It's the thing that extends your consciousness. So if you're walking around in your physical world, you're going to Target, and you're looking at Instagram, and you're going to work, and you're working with your kids, your families, or whatever, your significant others, you are absolutely participating in a 3D world, but there's always a 5D component to every single thing that you're doing. Your higher self is weighing in, or at least it's trying to get your attention for every micro decision all the way up to the big, what you would consider to be big jumbo decisions. Your higher self is in there because you're a frequency-based being first. There's way more non-physical version of you than there is the physical. Right? There's way more earth than there is what's in your car, 4, 6, 7 seats. Right? When you get in your car, it's a little bubble, it's a little chamber. And it sort of shuts out everything else that you're moving through, right? You're driving down the street, you're moving through. So if you're looking at you in the body car, you're moving through, and there's all kinds of things going on outside. Some things you tune into, and some things you don't. Right? You're tuned into where are you going to go. You know the address, or you know the building, or you know the landmarks. And if you don't know, you have your navigation system. And they've gotten quite sophisticated, and you can see all the maps and what's the shortest route and the longest route and all that kind of thing. So your higher self is really your navigation system. It's your confidant. It's your protector. It's all these things. And it's access to the infinite. It's access to all of the things that you need, whether if you're trying to write a book, it's access to what should be in the book. If you're trying to build your coaching practice, it's access to every client that you'll ever have. Every client that you will ever have, if you're I call you guys enlightened entrepreneurs. If you're entrepreneurial and you are trying to get your practice off the ground, every client that you ever will have already exists. And they're already looking for you on a frequency-based perspective. Because just like you have a higher self, so does everybody else. And your higher selves, all of our higher selves know how, to connect with the other one, to say, hey, you know what? Tell Mary to continue writing that book. Because we have about 600,000 beings who need that book. And your higher self, as you're getting inspired to write the book and you're starting to get chapters downloading, you're starting to get ideas, and you're pulling out napkins at the diner and you're writing down an idea and all that, that's your higher self answering the calling of the readers of your future, of the clients of your future, of the patients of your future, of the critters of your future, all of those things. So when we talk about being of service or making a contribution, in the academy we have like a level 1, which is really focusing on this whole communication from the higher self. Level 2 is really about alchemy and manifesting multidimensionally and getting all your stuff on your personal bucket list, like kind of filling up your own personal cup. And then our highest level is really about mission and about getting your work out to the world and making those bigger contributions and communing not only with your higher self, but with all the other higher selves out there that can support folks who are walking the planet. And so when you are in that idea that you have never comes from your mental, intellectual mind, your 3D mind. It always comes downloaded from your higher self. And it's not like it's a new idea to your higher self. It's a new idea to your 3D self. But to your higher self, it's like, oh, thank gosh, you got it. Okay, good. Now let's see if we can get the rest of it. And it's just like if you go to, a place where you don't speak, the language fluently. You kind of talk a little bit in words, and then you talk a little bit in charades, and you start pointing and putting up, making things with your hands and making all kinds of gestures like Pictionary, that Pictionary game. Well, that's what your higher self has to do with you if you're not fluent in its language. And what does that do? Well, from a 3D perspective, we have time and space and linearity. From a 5D perspective, there is no time, there is no space, there is no linearity. So your higher self, the majority of you, is on that 5D infrastructure, no time, no space, no linearity. The 3D self is on the 3D infrastructure, time, space, linearity. Well, if there's a divide between you knowing how to communicate with your higher self, or you know how to, clear the way to receive your messages, how to connect with your higher self, how it connects with you and how you can connect with it, how to actually communicate with it, how to receive the communications from it, how to interpret those communications and then evaluate them to make sure that it's not just your mental mind saying something, that it's actually your higher self, and then take action on it. Okay? That's what fluency looks like. And when you don't have that, then you have all kinds of misfires. And this is where people get very, very confused. Because the misfires are, I know I need help. My mental mind is driving me crazy, because your mental mind can only focus on the 3D physical world, and it generally focuses on the past and comparing itself to what it's seen from others. That's why we always look for reviews when we're trying to buy an appliance or something on Amazon. We're always looking and comparing to others. What's the precedent? What's the precedent? What's the precedent, right? Is this normal? Normal by what? 3D normal is very different than 5D normal. 5D normal is better. Okay. Now, from a 3D perspective, though, if you're only letting in certain chunks of the information, like let's say you get into like seeing signs and symbols and saying, oh boy, I saw 444, oh wow, and you know it feels good, but you're not sure what it means, and you see it's all the time, and it's just enough to get you to start asking questions, right? It just keeps kind of like a knock on the door, asking questions, hello, I'm here, please ask some questions so I can let you know that I'm here. That's why you're seeing those repetitive signs. But they're really, when you're seeing things like that, repetitive numbers and various, you might see the same type of bird all the time or whatever. Those signs, symbols, and synchronicities. On the 3D world, that's kind of where most people who don't know anything about fluency that's the first stop, right? That's how your higher self is trying to get a message through. And the first message it's trying to get through is really just to, for lack of a better word, cattle prod you into asking for its help, because you have free will. And if you don't ask for its help, it kind of can't really get in there deep with you to get the real good things done. And one of the big things is, imagine, you know how it is. Have you ever had your navigation system go in and out in your car? I'll never forget, I went to a writer's retreat in Vermont. This was many, many years ago, probably I think it was 2012. And I was writing my first book, and I was living in Jersey at the time, and I drove from Jersey to Vermont. And, of course, me, like a big dummy, decided, wouldn't it be fun to do a New Year's Eve retreat in Vermont? Yeah, that's super sharp in the height of their winter. And I started driving, and, it was like, get off the highway, okay, and then the next navigation was, and in 40 miles, I'm like, 40 miles, of like mountain driving, you'll get to the next thing, and then, and then somewhere in there, I started to lose the signal, and everything was white, everything. You couldn't see where the road ended and where the ice started and where the rivers or whatever those things, the the brooks and the streams or whatever. It was really treacherous. And then the sun started to go down. I mean, it was ridiculous, and it was snowing and all that, right? But the feeling of being in a place where I just had never navigated before, and the navigation system's going in and out, and I'm having to try to improvise and figure out, I have a really good sense of direction. And I did end up eventually getting there. I actually went down a wrong road, and the people were like, "You got down that road without falling off the sheer?" Yeah. So somebody was with me. I was maybe I and that's another time. That's a time when you are in an emergency situation, and I would call that a bit of an emergency because you are in a kind of harm's way, even though you don't realize it. Your higher self is right in there. It's right in there helping you to navigate. And you may not be saying, okay, higher self, should I make a left or a right? Or should I drive 5 inches closer to the edge of this road or down the middle of the road? But your higher self is saying, hey, move to the middle. Hey, don't turn there. Just go slow down. No, speed up. Your higher self is saying, in your head, you'll feel like, what you're thinking. Once you get fluent, though, in the language of your higher self, then the conversation can get so much more sophisticated and so much more nourishing and so much more flourishing, So you develop a partnership. And this is the key. This is the piece that's missing from everybody's manifesting. That when you start to ask for stuff, you say, oh, I really want a new blah, 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 new house or a new, relationship or whatever. And as soon as you said that, your higher self is like, cool, she's asked for something. Let's get in there and help her or him get, or them. Let's get it going. And then you get a hunch. What you would call a hunch in 3D, higher self is calling it a communication in 5D. You say, oh, I think I have a hunch that maybe I should try this. But if it just feels right, I'm going to just go with it. I'm not going to even think about it. I'm just going with it. Or before you even can think about it, you're saying yes, and you're going after it. That's the work of your higher self. Now, can you imagine how powerful it is if you could actually harness what this all is and understand the, beginning, middle, and end of this kind of relationship and how to build this, and then have it become reliable. So your higher self is sending at least 100 messages a day, not because, and they don't have to be, big, huge, overarching, crazy things. It's simply as simple as, should you have, you're feeling like super tired and you think you need to eat, and your higher self says, no, you're really dehydrated, have some water. And you're like, oh, I don't know why I just got a glass of water. I wonder why, right? That type of thing. So it's in there. It's in the trenches with you. You were never meant to go through all this alone. So all that being said, excuse me, tonight I wanted to talk about a few things and just some telltale signs that your higher self is trying to get a message through. I want you to sort of wet your whistle. I want you to get inspired. I want you to feel like you want to get fluent in this, not because I can teach you how to do it, and I can, and I want you in my academy if that's something that's a priority for you, for sure. I'd love to work with you and cut to the chase and get you going. But I also want you to, on your own, because I've found that people who are in the academy, if they don't have their own engine and they kind of lean on me and, because they want to be spoon-fed, that doesn't work. So I like people who have their own engine, who have a purpose that they want to get to, and they can't quite articulate it yet, but they know, like they have that feeling that, I want to get after this. I want you to start. I want to kind of give you a few ideas, okay, and some basic tenets so that you can start to notice and hopefully get inspired to want to really, really get in there. Because I will tell you that your higher self is always going to be honest. It's always going to be accurate. There is a difference between what your higher self will say and what your 3D mind will say in many, many cases. And they work from two very different engines. So I want to just get into a little bit of this with you so that you can start to really connect and see and sort of experience it and hopefully be inspired to join us. Okay, so the first piece of this is what I call the anatomy of the aha moment. And this is covered in my first book called The Aha Factor. I am coming out with a second book in 2024 called The 5D Toolkit. And so that's pretty much done. I'm just getting some editing done and figuring out the printing and all that kind of stuff. But we'll be talking about that more probably within the next month or so as I get more answers. And the anatomy of the aha moment is the real backbone. It's like the real structure of how a message from higher self gets to you. How do you communicate? And this is what I consider going beyond intuition. This is the full circle. So the first way that your higher self will connect with you is through what we call your four clairs. And most of you listening to this show, well, who knows, maybe not, but a good chunk of you know the four clairs: clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance. And of those four clairs, there's so clairvoyance is energetic sight. So they're basically frequency-based senses that overlay over your physical senses. We all have them. Everyone's born with them. There's no one who's just, got this special gift and nobody else has a gift. Everybody has these senses. Now, some people have developed them a lot more. Some people come in with a really, really strong sense of something because that's part of their what I call a contribution path, what they're going to contribute to the world. So their ability to be hyper clairvoyant might be elevated, but it doesn't mean that you don't have it too. See, in your own communication with your own higher self is way better than having the filter of a psychic in between, a middleman in between your higher self and you. But in any event, the four clairs, clairvoyance is energetic sight, clairaudience is energetic hearing, clairsentience is energetic feeling, and claircognizance is energetic knowing, like when you say, I knew within every cell of my being. So your higher self will always, always, always start with those four clairs. And then immediately your body, which is also an energetic antenna, will respond to those four clairs when you'll get maybe a chill or a sense of lightness or a sense of heaviness or goosebumps or a tightness if it's a negative thing, if it's a heavy thing, if there's, something that needs to be addressed. And then from there, your higher self has the power to send you signs, symbols, and synchronicities. So signs might be like, 444, 1111, seeing repetitive numbers, seeing anything repeating. So we say if you see it 3 times, then it's a sign, okay? Symbols, for instance, my dad, and I always say this when I talk about this stuff on the show, but my dad was in the Army, and so if I see USAA or an Army symbol, and I get that whooshy feeling, I know it's a symbol of him, right? Synchronicities are like what we would, in the 3D world, we call them coincidences, like it's haphazard. In the 5D world, that's a synchronicity thing with 3D and 5D, synchronicity. Okay, so signs, symbols, and synchronicities, your higher self will use all 3 of those to connect and give you messages, and to also give you reinforcement and to give you a truth meter on what the message that you receive. So let's say you get an insight and you say, I wonder if that's really my higher self or if that's my mental mind. And then your higher self will reinforce it with signs, symbols, synchronicities. And then finally, it will go out into your environment even further, and it will speak to other higher selves, and you will get a messenger who will come to you, who's in the flesh, a person. And they'll come up to you and they'll just start talking about, whatever that's relevant, and you'll feel it. So not everybody's a messenger, excuse me, but if you feel it, you get goosebumps, you feel that sense of lightness, you're listening to them, and they just feel like there's a sense of knowing, like you just get that sense of knowing all these pieces connect in together And then, and you know, you have a sense of knowing. And that's what we're looking for. When your higher self is trying to speak with you, send you a message, it's true if you're feeling a sense of knowing, feeling super anxious and going back and forth and highs and lows and spinning, and 1 minute you're doubting and the next minute you're not. That's not your higher self. That's your mental mind kind of getting either a little in the way or a lot in the way. Okay. You also, so with these messengers, it's interesting. I had someone come up to me. I was trying to solve an issue, and out of no, you know, and I'm saying toiling around with it, just you know, kind of batting around a lot of different things. And sometimes you do get into croggy issues. Now, it doesn't, just because your higher self is involved doesn't mean like this thing is going to be boom, 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 and then poof, it's all over. Sometimes it's, you know, if you have a bigger issue or you're being, you know, led through a particular, you know, difficult time, you're going to get step by step by step. So one of the other telltale signs of higher self working with you is that it will give you it always stays in the present moment. So it'll give you a task, and then you have to do that task for you to get the next one. Even though I'm making references like, you know, this is your navigation system, the one difference is, and sometimes it's annoying, but it's the truth, is that your higher self isn't going to give you a syllabus and tell you all the things ahead of time of what's going to happen. And then you get to take, you know, pick and choose like a Chinese buffet, what you will do and what you won't do and still want the outcome. Certain people come to me like that. And there's a lot of reschooling or just no schooling, because I won't deal with that, where there's this, you know, I want all this change, but I want to stay the same and be guaranteed everything before I'm willing to believe in anything further. And that doesn't work. Right? So what you want to make sure is that you are, if you feel like there's a task you should do, like you might hear, go Google blah, blah, blah. And then you say, well, that's kind of dumb because I need to know itThe. You say, but you hear it a couple times. Go Google this. Go Google it. You get this, you know, and you get busy in your day, but you hear, don't forget to Google this. Don't forget to Google this. And then you finally do, and it's like, then as soon as you do, you get this thing. Oh yeah, so then maybe I should try this, and maybe I should be like to that, and maybe because your higher self is like, boom, she finally got through the first door, so let's open 3 more. And then they wait. I say they, but your higher self waits for your physical self to do the task, and then it'll give you the next thing. Okay, so that's another telltale sign, is that it's going to come in smaller chunks than you might think is relevant. And this is where paying close attention is very, very important. So the other thing that will happen is, and you know, the other telltale sign that your higher self, and this telltale, hidden, you know, call it various different things. What your higher self is getting to, if it's a message from your higher self, it's going to feel like a sense of knowing, sense of like you don't even really take the time, because there's no time on the higher self side. It'll be like a boom. It lands, and you're like, oh yes, yes. And the faster you can act on it, the less time your 3D mind has to. Is that normal to do that? Is that normal? No. You really think you should? Just relax. Now, if it's truly your higher self, what you're going to get, and this is the third thing, is what you're going to get is your higher self is always going to be repetitive, quiet, and you won't be required to do a lot of deliberation. It gets in there kind of very stealth-like, and it sticks with one category. And it says, like, I know when I was writing my first book, it took me a really long time to write that book because I was really resistant and really stubborn. And it was a very hard, long book to write because it was, you know, the first one. And I was also teaching the content and figuring it out and all that stuff. And I wasn't really channeling like I do now back then. I mean, that whole book was channeled, but I didn't have as much of I didn't have words around it. I didn't know freeform channeling. All that stuff hadn't been channeled to me yet, so I was kind of on a different track. And in any event, I started to try to bargain and say, listen, if I could move to La Jolla, then I can finish that book. If I could I didn't say La Jolla, if I could move to the West Coast, I could, because I was in Jersey at the time. And all we kept hearing is, write the book. And I was doing telesummits at the time, and, I was a producer, and I was doing a lot of shows and stuff. And I was like, you guys, I could do so much better if I was on the West Coast by the ocean. And they're like, write the book, finish the book, finish the book, finish the book. It was just every day. And I would, and I would just grind out. Everything was just heavy and hard. Work was hard, and, things weren't quite connecting. And it was like feast and famine. And, it was just awful those last couple of years that I was there. And I just kept hearing, finish the book. So I finally just surrendered and said, fine. And I started going to Barnes & Noble every day with my computer. And Barnes & Noble, they didn't want you to plug your computer in because they didn't want their electric bill to go up. So you had to kind of sit there for as long as your computer battery could go, and then go home and charge your computer, So I would write every day for three hours, and I would pretty much 7 days a week. And I finally got to the end of it, and all of a sudden, everything started to come to fruition. All kinds of big things happened, and I ended up here in California. Now, those big things like getting an agent in 15 minutes and, getting signed really fast, and the book selling to a publisher in 24 hours, and all those things that happen that usually take people a really long time. As soon as I finished that manuscript, and all I did was finish the first real good draft of it, and then I sent it to an editor. I had 3 editors, my own editors, before I sent it into a publisher, so I didn't have to go through a lot of creative stuff with a publisher. And so I went through that, and all of a sudden everything started to quicken, because I had hit that certain tripwire where, and I say this to my classes, there's certain tripwires in your life. You have to get certain things done, and then things go whoosh and flow. Your higher self is the navigation for all that. It's the narrator. It's the one saying, okay, do this, don't do that, do this, do that. So your mental mind can get in the way. And when your 3D mind is not familiar and fluent in the language of your higher self and how it works and how it operates, it tries to take over because it knows it needs help, but it doesn't realize that it can also cannibalize everything that's going on, because it's operating on a different operating system. It's there for physical and logistics. It's not there for infinite. Right? And so you need the two working hand in hand to really flourish in your life. And that's what we really want. Right? So as you're going, off into the world to start to play around with this stuff, I'd like you to really consider a couple of things. I'd like you to consider working with me. I'm going to be starting my level 1 classes, and I'm registering now for them. We're going to be doing a nice deep dive. It should take you about 12 weeks with the system that I have, and it's been very proven and whatnot. About 12 weeks to get that really deep working knowledge where you're getting access to your messages daily, and you're being able to write them down and capture them or record them in your recorder and actually act on them and trust them and all of that. And then you will develop that, as you use it more, of course, you get more and more and more fluent. But that real deep, good, solid working knowledge where you can solve problems and manifest things and really have it as your partner, like that real partnership, good 8 to 12 weeks. And so that's how long our level 1 is. And I'm currently going to be doing frequency assessment calls, and we can talk about where your frequency is at, your 5D frequency, what you're using, what you're not using yet, and then what programs we have, if anything, is a fit for you in the academy with me. So I have 10 spots that I'm going to be opening up for level 1, and I really am looking forward to sort of rolling up our sleeves and really getting some folks who want, getting all tongue-tied because I get super excited about it. But people who really want that level of fluency so they can apply it to something. That's what really jazzes me. I have several people who are channeling books and healing modalities and developing coaching programs and doing artwork and all kinds of really interesting things, developing themselves and really finding their calling and their mission. And I love working with folks like that because it's for the bigger contribution. You know, when you are, as we're moving into these new ages of frequency and all these new downloads of energy that are coming onto the planet, I'll have to do a different show about it because this is running a little long. But as we're going into that, there's going to be a lot more hybriding of careers, right? You're seeing people not wanting to go back to work after COVID, and it's like, okay, I don't want to go back to a regular day job. There's something in me that I'm supposed to be doing. What's my calling? What's my calling? What's my calling? What's my calling? I feel like I'm being called. I feel like I'm being led. I think I want to start a YouTube channel or a TikTok or whatever, or write a book or develop some sort of business or put 3 of my passions together into something and help people with something, or I've solved this big problem that I've had, and I want to help other people who are in the same boat as I was get to the other side of it. You, in order to do that, in order to pave your own way, in order to pioneer your own path to your own calling, you need the fluency with your higher self. Period. End of story. There is no way I would still have this business if I didn't channel daily and really lean into it, really rely on it. Now, this doesn't mean that you never get into a jam again or you never have hard times, because life is life and 3D is 3D. But how long you stay down, how quickly you bounce, how resilient you are, how creative you are, it's like having a best friend right by your side. When you get a little 3D down, you get the 5D boost from your higher self. I can't, impress upon you enough how important getting access to the rest of you is. If you want a really joyful, awe-inspiring, happy life without apology, come work with us. And the way that you do that is just to send me an email. support@ahamomentsinc.com. Just send me an email and say, hey, I would like to know more. I'd like to get a 5D frequency assessment. And there's no pressure. I have 10 spots. I'm pretty selective. I really want to make sure that everybody in the group, I kind of curate the groups myself, so I want to make sure that everybody is cohesive in the groups, and that's very, very important to me. So there's no pressure. Would love to have you though, and get you going, especially if you feel like you have a big purpose, mission, calling, and you're ready to go for it. Let's have a talk. support@ahamomentsinc.com is where you do that, and then we will get in touch with you with all the particulars and book a call with me, and we can sit down and see what's what. Okay, so I think that's it for today. I just wanted to say, this is a little tease. I should have said this at the top of the show. I will be running, for the first time in 5 years, a live event in the spring. This has been channeled to me. I've got a certain chunk of it channeled and a certain chunk of it's not channeled yet. But I did want to bring it up that I will be doing a 5D abundance retreat. I believe it will be in May of next year. It is not the old Summit by the Sea. It is something very new. It will be in La Jolla. It will be on the cliffs and with the pelicans and the whales and the dolphins and whoever comes through. And I will be talking more about what that's going to all look like in the coming weeks. But I just wanted to put it on your radar that we will be doing that. And I'm very, very excited about it. I was out at the cliffs today, and I was videoing and hanging, watching the pelicans formations over my head and the dolphins and what have you. And I just said, it's that time. It's time to come on down and get this stuff in person on the cliffs. It's really magical here, very, very amplifying. And so I've done a lot of custom work, like where people individually fly and work with me one-on-one. But this particular one, we're going to do a beautiful, wonderful, luxurious, amped up energetically high frequency, all the things, event by the sea. So just wanted to put that on your radar so you can have that in the back of your mind. Just keep an eye on your inbox. I'll be sending out some announcements and pictures and what have you, and we'll take it from there. All right? So if you'd like to get on a call with me to talk about the frequency assessment, just reach out to me, support@ahamomentsinc.com. And that's it. We'll see you next week. Okay? So the motto is, what is the motto? You can truly have exactly what you want. You absolutely deserve it too. And in 5D frequency, with your higher self, anything is possible. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your night.